And the story of that is really trying to show people the impact of disengaging, but also how you can't escape it. It's like politics is life. You can't escape it. And when you disengage, you actually also negatively impact it. It creates that feedback loop. You're not engaging. When parties, for example, are putting together manifestos or trying to rally people, you may not be their priority because they need to appeal to the people who will vote for them. So imagine you're a young person, you're disengaged, you're not participating, I don't care. It's an expensive exercise to go out and try and rally people and mobilize. So I'm going to focus on the people who I know are going to vote, and then it's not you.
Please subscribe, like, comment, and turn on the notification button so you are aware of our future episodes that you will love so much. Hello everyone, welcome to another educational and entertaining installment of the Film Biz Show, the only podcast where we delve into industry professionals' minds to get their insights on the current landscape of the film and television business, both in South Africa and internationally. Now, today we're touching on a topic that we don't usually talk about in this business: voting and policies and how they affect our industry. Today, our guest is someone who can help us understand why our voices are important and how the industry can be run, depending on who we vote for and what policies come into place. Furthermore, how do these policies impact the things we need to strive in the industry? Our guest has over 10 years experience in the media and communications field, with extensive experience in strategic communications, program development and management, community outreach, grants management, as well as project and events management. She is a general manager of Civic and Democracy, Education, Research and Knowledge Management, working with the IEC. Let's welcome Miss Moagisi Sibanda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. It's not a common thing that you find someone who works with the IEC being involved in conversations that have to do with culture, that have to do with a sense of where the youth is. So we really are honored to have you here, and we're looking forward to a very engaging conversation.
Thank you. I look forward to discussing and just sharing in this interesting platform. It's
Yes,
not often I get to come to a creatives platform. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and maybe the start off point would be your personal story, because the one thing we share in common is our love for the media, and you have an extensive experience in the media space. Can you give us a history of who you are and where you're from?
Yeah. Well, I always start with I'm a journalist by training because it's a profession I'm very proud of, or a background and a skill I'm very proud of. I think it's the bedrock of where my career then went after I studied journalism at Rhodes University, because I think it has really enabled me to have a very impact-focused outlook on the work that I do. For me, the work that I do must always make a difference. It must matter. It must make people feel empowered in order to be able to do what it is that they need to do in their lives. So for me, I think it's just that journalism training that has influenced really who I am and what I do. I'm a creative at heart. I love to write. I love any kind of art. I love film. I specialized in TV at Rhodes, so film is really like something I like. I didn't practice it like you, but hey, we all have our space, right?
Right. But I must be honest, when I met you,
Yeah.
I was like, I've seen her. Isn't she that news anchor?
No, and I've gotten that before.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe people just pick up those journalist vibes.
But when you were younger, did you the reason why you chose journalism? Did
Yeah.
you want to be in front of the camera? Or
I actually did want to be a news reader.
what happened to the dream?
Hey, guys, the dream got diverted.
Okay, yeah.
Other interests. You explore and you expose yourself, and then you choose where you want to go. Like I said, I specialize in television at Rhodes, but I also did a postgrad in media management where I really wanted to understand the business side of media. And then I think that's what sort of eventually took me on this trajectory of, okay, communications, how does it work, the business side, you know, and just managing programs. I've worked a lot in civil society organizations, for example. I've worked for some international governments at their various embassies. But as I say, for me, social impact is a big part of the work that I do. And I always try and find my space, to make that difference no matter what role I'm in or which organization I'm in.
Interesting. Now let's talk about this title. Jeez, it's a whole sentence.
The sentence.
I just have to repeat it. So you are the general manager
Yes.
of Civic and Democracy, Education, Research, and Knowledge Management.
Exactly.
What is that?
Ooh, it's a marriage of various things that we do at the IEC. So at the Electoral Commission of South Africa, or the IEC as it's more popularly known, one of the key mandates is to inform and educate the public. And so having a department within the organization that focuses solely on that is really part of our mandate. So that's where I come in, and we have a team of colleagues. We all work together around the country to ensure that South Africans are informed. And we do civic education any year, whether there's an election or not. We have to conduct civic education because you're always preparing the electorate for the next elections. Then research is also a very important part of the work that we do because it informs our operations. It informs also what kind of content we prepare for civic education. So, for example, some of our latest research has enabled us to understand why participation is so low when it comes to elections. And you won't know that unless you do research. And then we also share that research. We socialize it with political parties, with the media, with civil society organizations, so that people understand what exactly are the issues that are causing the discontent or the distrust, which is really the real reason why especially young people don't want to vote.
I mean, now that we are touching on that, what is the reason why there's been such a low voter turnout?
Trust. And it's not unique to South Africa, but people are generally very disappointed and discontent with political parties, with political figures, with governance, with socioeconomic issues. And all of those things impact people's participation because people attach their participation in democracy to a realization of their socioeconomic circumstances and progress and that improving. And when it doesn't and it deteriorates, when you have corruption, which is some of the reasons people give when we do research, why they're not engaging, the corruption, the crime, there's no jobs, especially with young people. And therefore, why should I? So a big part of our messaging with civic education has been not just this is how you do it, this is when you should do it, but why you should do it. Why should I participate? And the story of that is really trying to show people the impact of disengaging, but also how you can't escape it. It's like politics is life. You can't escape it. And when you disengage, you actually also negatively impact it. It creates that feedback loop. You're not engaging. When the parties, for example, are putting together manifestos or trying to rally people, you may not be their priority because they need to appeal to the people who will vote for them. So imagine you're a young person, and you're disengaged, you're not participating, I don't care. It's an expensive exercise to go out and try and rally people and mobilize. So I'm going to focus on the people who I know are going to vote. And then it's not you. So you won't see yourself reflected. You won't see your priorities reflected. So it's very important to really make sure you participate. You put up your hand. We now have independent candidates, for example. It's an opportunity. The space is opening up.
Shout out to MacG.
Okay. The space is opening up exactly for people who say, I wish to represent South Africans. These are the South Africans who would support me and who say I should go into parliament, for example, and represent their views. Then you do that. So there are options, and definitely this election will have more options than we've seen because of this inclusion of independent candidates. But disengagement doesn't serve any of us. In fact, democracy deteriorates when we disengage.
Very true. I mean, then I guess my question is, now that we're getting closer to the elections, obviously you guys are much more visible. But let's say as soon as we're done with the election process, we've got, in 2 years' time, we've got the
Local government elections.
Local government elections.
Yes.
What interventions are you guys doing? And I'm assuming you guys are not working now because we're doing the national elections.
Yes.
You're working all 365 throughout the time.
Yeah.
And what kind of interventions have you guys been doing to kind of educate the young people?
Okay, so during elections, we employ an increased number of civic education staff, so that we increase not really our visibility, but our capacity to reach as many South Africans as possible. In a non-election year, we go back to using our permanent staff. So, for example, this being an election year, we've got just under 2,500 that we hired around the country to conduct civic education ward to ward to ward. And this was from July. And we have an event, we call them civic education events, these face-to-face events, a target of 80,000 in this election year. So 80,000 events. By the time we actually had
what kind of events are these?
So it would be town halls. They would call town halls in their communities, in their wards. They would do activations at taxi ranks, at malls. We've got schools program with the Department of Civic Education. It's called the Schools Democracy Program. We've got, I like that you're saying you've seen them.
No, seriously, I have.
Oh, good. Yay. Shout out to the IEC staff. Yeah. So we've got our tertiary institutions campaign. So we go into tertiary institutions to do civic education. We really go everywhere we can go. We go everywhere we are invited to go. Tomorrow we'll be part of a human rights festival and doing an activation there and speaking there, just informing the public about the elections, everything, what is IEC, what are general, the NPE elections, what participation means, how to vote. So now we're going on a big balloting education campaign because we're getting close to voting day. So now we need to educate around the 3 ballots that we'll have for this election, for example. Outside of an election year, our target of events would go down. So it would be like 40,000 like we had last year. And that would utilize the around 300 to 400 permanent staff of the IEC. Again, still spread out the country because we've got offices in all the provinces and local offices. So the footprint is there and it's present. And I'm glad that you've seen some of our people on the ground. Yeah. Then we also use media. We've got media partnerships such as the SABC. We do social media. We create content, really distilling some of these laws around elections, and we put that on our social media platforms. We share that with other stakeholders who use digital platforms. Community radio is very big for us, as well as local language radio and SABC, because when you speak to a person in their language, you facilitate understanding. That's exactly. True. And community radio as well, and even the SABC public service radio stations, you're also able to localize issues. And you have callers calling in, and it's electricity, but you begin to show people why then voting, participating, knowing who your counselor is, going to your community meeting. Do you know you can influence the budget, within your community, but you must show up for those kind of things. How are you holding those you elected accountable? All of that is participation in democracy. And we get to paint that picture for people so that you give them more agency, right? And then now we're in manifesto period, everybody's electioneering. The public is at least better prepared to assess what you're saying, what the other person is saying, how does this suit my circumstance? And then who do I want to put forth to represent me where it's going to matter? And how am I going to follow them to show that there is follow through and things improve?
Interesting. Now, before I get to policy, I just want to touch on trust. You mentioned the reason why people are not voting as they should is because there's a trust factor.
Mm-hmm. And the coffee is very good, by the way.
Thank you. That was made by this hand, the right one. So And recently there were news, I mean, I'm sure you saw everywhere, on radio, television, that one of the political parties wrote directly to the American Senate to say they must come and they must keep a close eye on our elections because basically the IEC cannot be trusted or the ruling party cannot be trusted. Can you just touch a bit on that? Because I think, that created a lot of instability in terms of the trust that people have in you guys as the IEC.
Well, I think if the question is around observers and transparency of South African elections, South African elections are one of the most transparent and open elections in the world. And by that, I mean we have political parties who are quite close to the process. We've got what we call the Political Party Liaison Committee, where we engage and brief political parties every month on the process of elections. Political parties have what we call party agents inside voting stations on voting day to observe the entire process from the morning all the way to counting of results in the evening. We also have observers from civil society organizations. They get accreditation, they apply. You can apply if you want to with an organization. We have multilateral organizations like the AU and all of those organizations. So that's normally how the whole election observation process really works, not in the way that this request came through. And it's something that is already on the cards for these elections, as has been for all elections. We train observers, we provide briefings, we provide material, they know exactly how it's going to happen. And they also give us reports at the end of the day, independent reports about what it is they observed in voting stations. And those are some of the ways in which an outcome of a free and fair election is processed, through those observations, through reports from those who are inside the voting station, the party agents, the observers, etc. And of course, the results and how elections were run. We even have what we call the election satisfaction survey. We run a survey on election day at over 300 voting stations, doing it from morning all the way to the night time, just assessing voter experience on the day. And IEC gets, over 90% rating when it comes to election satisfaction. So it tells you that some of the perceptions that you will hear before elections, if you compare that to what really happens on voting day, it throws out some of the things that get, flown around before elections come.
And now the Electoral Amendment Act was a very important part of where we are right now. But I still find that a lot of creatives don't really know what that act is about. And it informs a lot about how we will be running this process and how you've done it. Can you just share a bit on that and when it started?
So the process of amending the act, really the correction that was being sought was to allow independent candidates to equally participate and have an equal opportunity when it comes to entering National Assembly. You will know before now, independent candidates could not be part of National Assembly. So it was deemed that it was unconstitutional for the way in which the electoral scheme was set up to exclude independent candidates in that way. And so it brought about a number of changes over the past 2 or so years when the bill was being, formed and consulted upon and eventually adopted. Now, what changes does it bring? So independent candidates, as I said, can now contest for 200 seats at National Assembly.
Fantastic.
Another key part of the amendment is that you must vote where you are registered, which is a very important thing to communicate, because previously you could vote anywhere when it comes to the national and provincial elections, right? But now you must vote where you're registered. So if you're registered voting station ku Tembisa in this ward, that's the place you must go and register.
So,
If you
so,
cannot,
so if you
yeah,
maybe the last time you registered was 8 years ago,
you
in
needed to have
Tembisa.
updated your address.
Oh, to say I've
yes,
moved now to
yes. So you
Fourways.
can, yes,
Okay.
you can always update your address. But now the
Okay.
voters' roll is closed.
Okay.
So the voters' roll
you have
when
to
it
go
was
back
open,
to Tembisa if you didn't update that.
yes.
Okay.
That's where you or the Section 24A says that then if you are not going to be at the voting station where you are registered, so you must vote where you are registered. So go back.
Yeah.
But if you're not there because you know
Yeah.
Kevin has asked you to go to Cape Town,
Yeah.
you know, mereko ke mereko,
Yeah.
you have to notify the Electoral Commission by the 17th of May
Okay.
that I will be in Cape Town. I want to vote Kolanga. This is the voting station.
Interesting.
So that
Okay.
we can include and make provision for you at that voting
Okay.
station.
But as long as if you voted before.
If you voted before, you stay on the voters roll.
Okay.
But if you've moved, you must update your contact details. That's why when we're doing the registration drive, it was register and update your contact details. That is what, yeah.
Now, can you let us know where people can check to see where they're registered? If they're on the
So
roll?
you can go on our WhatsApp number, 0600 880000. I think the first menu option there should be am I registered, but it will be there. You put in your ID number and then it will return with your voter registration status. If you are registered, it will tell you exactly which station in which locality. If not, do it next time.
Okay.
Before it would have said, here's the link to register. Now it won't tell you that anymore.
Okay.
But at least if you forget or want to be reminded, Ghana, where am I registered? You can just go on the WhatsApp number, go on our website. There is also a voting station checker there, and you'll be able to check your status. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. So within our sector, the big conversation is around the Copyright Amendments Bill. And, just 2 weeks ago, we had the head of SAMRO Legal, and who's also the head of the Copyrights Coalition of South Africa. And we had a very informed conversation around that. And I know that's not really where your focus is, but this bill has really tested, the grit, really the will of the creatives in this country to say, are we able to come together and kind of form a united voice? And obviously some maybe misinformed creatives would go with the other side and say, let's make choices that are not necessarily good for us in the long run as filmmakers. But, what creative ways can the media industry speak on policy and the importance of voting and registration? Because it's important. Who we vote for directly affects my pension, directly affects my income as an actor, as a producer. So, how do you think we as filmmakers, creatives, influencers can put the message out there?
I mean, how are you using your space to tell, the story of democracy, to tell the story of participation, to help distill why voting, why participating is important? I mean, it's the creative industry. We create content at the IEC and we try and make it interesting. We try and use edutainment. We've done industrial theater, street theater to try and break down, and we are actually continuing with that. We create animations, for example, and all sorts of interesting social media toolkits and infographics. But I think in the space that we're in, where people are so inundated with information, especially in this digital age, the information, the pressure to always be consuming is so much that it's hard to get people to pay attention to things that matter, especially things that take a while maybe for change to be realized, because that's what democracy is. It's a long-term journey. It's not an instant gratification. And with digital media, people are just so used to now. But it doesn't work like that. But you must stay with it. You must start so that in the future, you benefit, and future generations also benefit. But how do we keep people engaged around those important issues? And I think that's the space people like yourselves can play in. How do we do it through storytelling? How do, when somebody is watching popular shows, Buskim Sam, how are we incorporating that into just normal, storytelling and scripting? Because we're supposedly reflecting, real life, and we want people to see themselves. So let the issues that matter also be seen by people, because people do actually want to engage. It does matter. It's just that if it feels hard, if it feels like it's too arduous, people do disengage. So how do we make it interesting and light and attainable and break it down into chunks? It's like, no, it's not president, but this is the role that you can play in your space, or this is why you should care in your space. But we need creative people to do that, because the commission is not a creative agency. We hire creative agencies to do that kind of work. So we do utilize the industry quite a lot to help us, tell the story, to help us create messaging that will grab people, that will make people see themselves in the story of South Africa. The campaign we're running for this election is called Your Democracy Own It, and it was really trying to remind people again that this is yours. It's not owned by a government. It's not owned by the IEC. Democracy is yours. You are part of it. It's not something that exists outside of you, It is who you are. And so when you have, in the campaign, there's all sorts of, characters that are utilized. And the point was for people to see themselves in the whole discussion, in the whole ecosystem of elections.
I remember just when we attained freedom, there used to be a lot of music that was released that would rally the people. South Africa, we love you.
Yes,
and I'm asking myself, like, I think maybe, we should also...
We need a song.
We need
Maybe
a song.
we need a song.
We need a song,
Ne?
like a real,
We should
banger.
call Ndlovu Youth Choir.
Man, Lisa,
We need...
Can I more focalistic, man? But
we're remixing.
Okay.
Then the background,
yes.
then you can put my piano there.
We need to remake it, ne? The remix version.
We want people to see themselves, and we all like different types
That's
of
so
music.
true.
So yeah, let them come up with something.
And
I'm ready to sing.
There were so many songs. I think Bafana had like 8 songs. Some we even forgot. During AFCON, they used to play some of these songs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot the song. Esinya Beni.
I was about to go into that.
No, not that one. Just a
okay.
random song. And no one thinking Bafana. But you see, I think by then, and I think it's because a lot of the exiles had just come back, and a lot of creative energy was very heated, heightened. So we had a lot of those interventions between the IEC and the creative sector. But I want to ask about your presence in the digital space. What kind of interventions have you guys also been putting out there to make sure people are constantly engaging? You did mention your TikTok page.
Yes. First of all, you have to be on all platforms, because you need to find South Africans everywhere that they are. I think an important thing that we do in civic education is that we want people to come to us, but you must also come to people. I think the age you're referring to, it's 30 years of democracy this year. The time was very different. The mood was very different. The cause was big. What's our common cause now? And maybe it should be that, we need to make sure that it doesn't all, come to nothing. You know what I mean? And you do that by ensuring that people are playing their part. I think it really is about playing your part. But we are on all social media platforms. There's no platform where we're not on. We try and influence the space by providing information very readily. And I think that has worked a lot. There's a lot of young people doing all sorts of TikTok videos, explainers about the Amendment Act. As I said, we're now doing balloting education, and you'll see a lot of social media influencers, as they're called, talking about the 3 ballots, because it's important to explain to people We're going to have 3 ballots this time. The third one being a new one, the regional ballot. That's the one that will have political parties and independent candidates for National Assembly. So you'll get the national ballot for National Assembly, the regional ballot for National Assembly, and the provincial ballot for provincial legislature. And so we need to unpack all of that, and you need to make it a visual, interesting type of delivery. And social media does that pretty well and gets the conversation going. And so you find young people who've got the platform, who've got the audience, and you allow them to speak in their language, but having provided the information. But as I said, there's also a lot of organic content out there where people are just really moved to play their part, and they're just doing it in any case without any of our creative intervention.
So, you know, I mean, as filmmakers, we are the mouthpiece for culture. You know, we are the expression of the people's desires, their everyday lives, you know. What advice would you give to filmmakers exclusively when it comes to responsible messaging and kind of keeping that hope alive amongst young people?
I mean, gosh, you create the content that people watch and consume and follow.
Yeah.
That directs people's lives. People really take what they consume in the media very seriously. So it's important for those who create to use their voice in a responsible way for the greater good. I think self-interest obviously is a human thing for all of us, not for any industry, of course. But when it comes to, you know, the democratic, you know, cause, greater good must always override. And that requires us to be responsible with what we say, responsible with what we share, how we opine, you know, and substantiate, because, you know, elections are a very serious thing. You know, you can't just say anything. And I think sometimes people, not just people from the industry, I just really think as South Africans, responsible South Africans, you cannot just say anything. You can ask questions, and those should be answered. But you're talking about a very important process that has impact on our everyday lived lives. You don't gamble with something like that. So how we speak about it, what we say, what we insinuate must be from a space of wanting to do what is good, what is right for the country, not just for, does this benefit me today? Because, I don't know, I get likes, you know, on social media and I'm popular. It's not a popularity contest. It really is, it's country duty. You must do country duty, be responsible. Do not, you know, be part of the misinformation and disinformation. Seek out the right information and go to it and share it so that we don't, you know, create a space where ill-informed messaging is going around and we're utilizing our platforms that are watched by millions of people to spread misinformation. So just acting responsibly and remembering, you know, the greater cause, the greater good for the country, for our children, for their children, because we're working for today, but also for the future. So we must be responsible with the future today. Unfortunately, sometimes I think elections are asking you to make decisions today about the future, and that requires proper reflection, being responsible. Because then when that future comes, you must be pleased with what you decided today. And I think 30 years on, we're in the space where we need to appeal to people's heart, to stay the cause, to participate, to show up for themselves and show up for their country. And nothing does that better than storytelling.
Well, Moagisi Sibanda, we thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you.
For speaking so eloquently and for, you know, just keeping that promise alive that, you know, this is a country that we are all going to, that we all belong to, and we all should be fighting for. So, Raulebocha, and may you continue your great work.
Indeed, and may you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.